I want to get to something that you wrote last week. You ranked the 49ers top 5 needs in the draft. And so I want to break those down real quick and just kind of get you to talk about that. The 5th need was wide receiver. And what you wrote was that there's just not much proven depth beyond 2023.
Yeah, I just think that as of right now, the biggest concern is that, you have a guy like Juwan Jennings who's played very well, but 2-3 years down the line, I don't think they'll be able to retain him at the price they have him at now because of all the things he does really well. He's excellent blocking. He's proven to be a guy that you can rely on in the red zone, on third down. And I think the 49ers are reaching this phase of being a contending team where you have to really operate within the margins. And some of these guys that, you'd love to keep around, other teams will have more money to shell out and pay for. Mm-hmm. And I think that Jennings is a guy that definitely falls into that category. We don't know what the future with Brandon Ayuk is. I think he's an incredibly talented player, and I would hope the 49ers exhaust every possible option to keep him. But as of now, there's nothing guaranteed beyond the 5 years that he'll be here on his rookie deal. And then with a guy like Danny Gray, who has a ton of potential, you just don't know what that potential will ultimately be. I think he's a guy who has a lot more than just being this north to south, speedster that will take a top off a defense. I think he has the chance to be a dynamic weapon in this offense. But it really just to me comes down to you should always be planning a year or two ahead at a couple positions. In an ideal world, you'd be able to do it everywhere. But some you need to prioritize, and to me, receiver is one of them, especially when you think about how difficult that transition has been for some guys in this offense. Deebo Samuel's an all-pro, and he had mentioned early on the adjustments that he had to make as a rookie. We've heard it with guys like Pettis and even Ayuk, where they talk about how difficult it is to absorb the full, install and playbook and then get out there and do the things that are asked of receivers early on. So to me, it's more, it may not be like a pressing need in 2023, but when you start looking in the long term, I think that it's something where it'd be nice to be able to just seamlessly go to a guy who, even if they don't see the field too much of the first year or two, you can seamlessly transition to, and they have that experience in the building and in the system.
Are they going to be able to keep Ayuk and Deebo Samuel?
I think so. I think that it really comes down to how much this new TV deal, I think, is going to really change things. And I think the Niners are one of the teams that's gotten way ahead of planning for that and knowing that the cap's going to jump. So even if you give out deals now where the numbers look a little eye-popping and you're like, oh, that's a lot for this guy, 2-3 years from now, that might look like a bargain based on how much that cap is projected to rise. So if it wasn't for that, I'd be a little bit more concerned about their ability to do it. But I think given the way that it's projected to go up and just the general popularity of the NFL, people aren't going to be tuning out anytime soon. Those TV ratings are going to go up. The cap numbers are going to go up. So I think they'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I really like Ayuk. Obviously love Deebo, but Ayuk is just he's a great receiver, and I think that he's on his way up. So the 4th in your top 5 needs, number 4 is cornerback, and you listed that it was kind of the same thing as wide receiver. It's just a lack of depth.
Yeah, and it's more so like I think it's an unproven amount of depth, right? Because Mooney Ward and Diamador Lenore were really good in the postseason. They figure to be the top guys going into next year. Isaiah Oliver was a good signing. I think he's kind of it's his job to lose to be that starting nickel corner. But he's also only signed for 1 year. And then beyond that, you have some guys with some great athletic traits in Samuel Womack and Ambry Thomas. But again, there's not really a great sample size that would make you feel like, okay, well, these are the guys we can fall back on down the line if that's the way things play out. So I think it's just another situation where you should keep taking those guys every year. And then if a guy's on the roster for a year or two, it doesn't work out, you're not stuck scrambling to replace that depth and that production. You should just always be one step ahead. And to me, the receiver edge and receiver, corner, and edge are 3 positions where you should always have this mentality that you can never have too many players there. I think that even if it's causing problems with the depth chart or it's causing problems with guys not getting enough reps, just how valuable those positions are, and especially with how much guys will tend to price themselves out after having success, I think you should always have an extra contingency plan for each of those positions.
Yeah, those are important positions. Any position on the outside seems like it's a really important one. Number 3 is tight end, and this is a good draft for tight end. So what are you thinking there?
Yeah, so I think at this point, I think they've been trying to get Kittle a complimentary piece for a couple years. I thought, in my eyes, the one that actually looked the best, even though it was very short lived, was when they had Jordan Reed in 2020 for a few games. Exceptionally talented player. It's just injuries. It's an unfortunate part of this game. But I think we're at the point now where Kittle is he's one of the best to ever play the position. He's an incredible player, and I don't think he'll be slowing down anytime soon. But tight ends usually take a couple of years to really hit their stride in this league. And if you start thinking long term, how many more years is Kittle going to be able to be wanting to take the punishment that he takes every single year and just the level of physicality he brings to the game? I think it would be wise to have another player where you can maybe give the guy a break and not have him out there 17 games a year in the regular season where he's, putting his body on the line like that with the amount of snaps he gets. So I think it's more so protecting the asset that you currently have rather than like, oh, okay, well, Kittle's getting, he's going to be on the other side of 30 soon. We need to start planning for his replacement, because for a guy who plays the game the way he does with the passion and the intensity he does, I would never want to speculate that, he'll be slowing down anytime soon, because I just don't see it, frankly. I think it's more so just complimenting him by allowing him to be more efficient by adding another weapon that can contribute at that position.
Yeah, and it seems like that's what Shanahan wants to do, having two tight ends who are threats in the passing game. I think that's why he went out and got Jordan Reed. But unfortunately, like you said, Jordan Reed was hurt. And then when he was healthy, Kittle was hurt in 2020. So it just never worked out. You mentioned the number 2 one on your list is edge rusher. And you mentioned that already. But where are you at on that, especially when it comes to Drake Jackson?
I really like Drake Jackson. The thing I look for with edge rushers is always bend. Bend is one thing that I think it translates the best. A lot of guys either have it or they don't. It's not it's something you can get a little bit better at, but for the guys who really excel, some either have it and some don't. And I think Drake Jackson does have it. I also think that his time at USC made a very difficult transition to the NFL, because they asked him to play so many different positions. They asked him to not be in a role that would put him in the best position to succeed. And his weight, I think, too, was another thing where he came in at a weight where I was like, okay, this might take a year of an NFL weight program, just being in the building, being around Kosaric, Tapp, and those guys, and he'll really start hitting his stride year 2. So nothing I saw year 1 really threw me for a loop. I figured that was kind of what was going to happen. And he has great instincts. He has really good instincts for the ball. We saw he had 5 or 6 batted passes throughout the year. Really good motor. I've had the chance to speak with him a couple times one-on-one, and he's very bright, really, really smart pass rush. When he starts talking about the moves, his counters, and all the intricacies of pass rushing, you can tell he's a very, very bright young man. So there's a lot of promise, and I think there's a lot of belief there. But I also think, losing Charles Omenihu, losing Jordan Willis, this team has really thrived on a strength and numbers approach at that position, and having such a deep group of players to lean on as the year goes on. So I would take one, and that's not an indictment on Drake Jackson. It's more so just, hey, we need as many good edge rushers as we can have. I've never heard of a team complain and say, man, we have too many good defensive ends right now. Like, we need to ship one of these guys out of here. There's just too many talented guys on the team. Had Omenihu and Willis not be, had they not left, I don't think it would be as pressing of a need. But that's a lot of not just production, but snaps with reliable players, where even if they're not getting the pressures or the sacks on a given play, you could count on them to be in the right spot and handle their responsibilities while guys like Nick Bosa were getting their rest. And I think that that's something that's extremely valuable that maybe wouldn't show up in a box score, but plays a huge role as the year goes on for a team that's built so much of their identity in getting after the opposing quarterback.
Yeah, that's a great point. And your number 1 on the list was tackle, specifically right tackle. Are you concerned about Colton McKivitz, or is this a depth thing?
It's more so just like, so I think that right now the Niners are in a spot where the future is so uncertain at both spots because Trent Williams has kind of mentioned like, hey, these seasons are adding up. I think he'll play for a couple more years, but comments like that after such a long career and after all the things he's been through, both on and off the field, I think they do hold a lot of weight. So I think it's a situation where as of now, it's right tackle because nobody's unseating the greatest tackle to ever play the game in my eyes in Trent Williams. But I do think that they need to start looking at a long-term answer that could maybe play left tackle and be the, plan there. Like, let's say McKivitz does work out and they really like what they have. Well, if you get a guy now who has those traits, who has a chance to redshirt and develop a little bit, maybe then they can be that succession plan to Trent Williams when that time comes. But I think that just at the end of the day, you want to take as many guys as you can and have them be in that competition or be in that group of players that you're considering for a long-term option, because I don't think I've seen anything from Colton McKivitz that would make me feel like he can't do it. Mm-hmm. I just also think that there's a couple of guys in this class who might be available in the third round when they're picking that don't necessarily have to come in and start right away, but who have great athletic traits and could possibly be something for you in the long run.